We have Aleta Botts, Project Coordinator of the Kentucky Farmland Transition Initiative, with us on this edition of Farm to Frankfort. Aleta, it's great to have you with us here today. Tell us a little bit about the Kentucky Farmland Transition Initiative.
So the Kentucky Farmland Transition Initiative was launched this year to address the loss of farmland that we're seeing in Kentucky. And this is not a new challenge. We all drive down the road and we see where farmland's been broken up, we see where it's been paved over, turned into shopping centers, homes, what have you. We all have stories of families who've lost family farms. But certainly the census data that came out, really showed just how big of a problem we have in Kentucky. For the first time, we're under 50% as far as the percentage of land in Kentucky that is farmland. So we're dramatically seeing a reshaping of our landscape in Kentucky, and we thought it would be good to look at why, but also look at what we can do to try to mitigate some of those effects of losing that land. So the initiative is three components. One, we want to make sure that we're providing farmers and landowners with resources that can help them if they want to keep that land in production and in the hands of active farmers. So resources that are workbooks, resources such as how to do different things with your estate. But then the second component is bringing together experts that are already working in that field, attorneys, CPAs, estate planners, our university extension folks who are already working some in that space, and connecting them up both with each other and also with those farmers and landowners who need their expertise, who could really benefit from it. And then finally looking at, all right, if we have this farmland being lost, what is the policy that is either creating obstacles for people to keep their land in production or not creating enough incentive to keep that land in production? And really looking at the policies that we have at the local, state, federal levels to see how policies could be improved. Maybe new policies are needed. Maybe we need to look at existing policy that we don't need anymore. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about the initiative, in my opinion, is that because we're working at people at the ground level with getting them resources, finding out their issues, and we're also working with experts, attorneys, CPAs, estate planners, all of that feeds into what would work at the policy level. Right. So it reaches both at the ground level and then all the way to the top.
Yeah, and so it's something we've talked about for quite a while, really. But kind of why now? Like, why now, Eddie? Did this kind of come to kind of a head this year?
Well, so I guess if you talk about the why now is before the first of the year, a new executive committee, we sat down together and talked about what issues are out there that are important to agriculture. What is the thing that we think that is the topic that we need to focus on this year, because you need to be doing something and trying to make a difference. And so we came up with talking about the lost farmland. And so me working with Aleta for the last 9 or 10 years when she was at K-Card, knowing that she had a passion of this. She and I had talked about this for years before now, basically talking about young and beginning farmers, because K-Card worked in this space and still does work in that space. They're one of those partners that we have out there that can work on this. So she and I had talked about this, and I've been passionate about it from a young farmer perspective about keeping young people in agriculture. So we spent the winter talking back and forth, and my timeline was a little bit different than Aleta's at the time. I wanted to push faster. Aleta wanted to slow me down, which is probably a good thing. And but then in March, when the Census of Agriculture came out and the numbers came out, and we said, wow, we've got to do something now, because the numbers said that we lost 6,500 farmers and we lost over 500,000 acres of farmland in the last 5 years, from 2017 to 2022. Now, we say that and we go through it, but if you break that down a little bit more, and it kind of means more to me if I break it down, it's 100,000 acres a year. Oh, yeah. But if you break that down, it's 274 acres every day. It's almost 11 acres an hour.
Yep, larger than the average family farm in the state.
Right. So
every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So it told us as a group, we've got to try to do something. So we launched the initiative, I think, on April the 9th, thereabout. The timing, again, probably pushed us a little faster than what we initially intended because of the census, but it also said that the need is out there and we need to talk about it. Aleta did some work. She went back 20 years, and we've lost 17,000 farmers, 1.4 million acres over 20 years. So if it's 1.4 million over 20 years, in the last 5, we've lost 500,000, it's accelerating. So that tells us we need to be doing something now. What can we do about it? And the initiative has really worked. Our staff here, Aleta's done a lot of work. We've got the network of partners out there. We've got 26 different organizations that have signed on with us to be a part of this initiative because, you know, everybody's got an idea, and you may have that one idea that can help us do something. And so we want everybody's input. We're letting commodity groups and other people tell us things that what can we do to make this better, to keep this land in active farmers' hands. We're always going to be about private property rights. I don't ever see this organization changing that. So you own your farm, you get to do what you want to with it. But someday we have to wake up and say, it's time to do something, or we're not going to be able to feed, clothe, and fuel ourselves. It's what and so that's the reason for the urgency of it. And of course, we're working on a lot of different funds. Aleta works every day on this, along with all of our staff, you in your area, Renee in her area. Everybody's engaged in what we're doing. So I'm excited about where we're going. We don't know where we're going to end up yet. We've still got a lot of work to do. But we've done a lot so far, and Aleta can give you some of those ideas of what we've done so far.
Yeah, and you mentioned the partner network, and I know, Aleta, you've worked closely with Renee, and that partner network are all of our commodity groups, universities, banking and financial institutions. It's so much more than just your traditional farmer. This impacts so many people all across Kentucky and all our rural communities. It is very impactful. And Eddie, you mentioned a little bit about, Aleta, your background at K-Card. Tell us a little bit more about your background in terms of, you know, your work in Washington and kind of, you know, maybe the personal history about this issue.
So it's ironic, really, that I'm working on farmland transition because, and on the policy side, because so much of the work that I've done, a lot of my career has engaged on this subject in different ways. But, you know, certainly working for K-Card on business plans with folks, with farmers, and really seeing how families struggle to transition their businesses and struggle to transition their land, and seeing that challenge. That's what Eddie alluded to. You know, he and I used to talk about these issues and how can we really help folks navigate that, because it is complex. It is tough. And so how can we help people with that? And then, you know, I went through my own farmland transition with my own family. And I saw, you know, once you go through that, you have a different perspective on exactly how things happen. And it's challenging and it's tough when you're having to navigate those issues while you're also, frankly, grieving, you know, your family. Absolutely. And so, you know, that really did help me. It really changed my outlook on a lot of these issues and really gave me a new perspective on it. And then, you know, prior to that, you know, I'd worked in D.C. for 10 years on policy, and we worked on agricultural and rural development policy on the Hill. And so, you know, to me, and this reflects back to the network as well of organizations that are involved in this issue of farmland loss impacts every other issue related to ag.
Right.
And so, you know, when I look about the policy and working on ag and rural development policy, all the stuff that we work on is so important. If we don't have this land, then a lot of the other ag policy that we are working on, it's not going to affect the same things. We're not going to have that resource base that we need, that asset base. You know, I read that 80% of farm net worth is land in this country. That means that so much of the capital that we assume is present in our agricultural system is the land
itself.
And so if we're not looking at how we affect a good transition in that land from farmer to farmer, if we're not looking at how we can help young farmers get into that asset base and build equity, then we're really missing an opportunity to help our farmers.
And
that's what excites me about the initiative.
yeah, and it's exciting for our membership. We're in the heart of our policy development process, and we're going to have a record number of resolutions this year, and a big reason for that is because of all of the policy recommendations coming in from counties and advisory committees on this issue. Because like you say, Aleta, if you don't have access to that land, a lot of other policies aren't that important if you don't have access to the land to actually be engaged in the farming activity. So our membership has responded. I think Eddie's mentioned it before at the first board meeting that you came to and reported on. I think we went over by...
I think we'd set aside 15 or 20 minutes, and
Yeah.
I think at an hour and 20 minutes or so, I said, we've got to call timeout. We have to finish our board meeting here. But it shows, and I think it's everywhere we go, that people have shown an interest in this. I think they think it's important. I think that our legislators, whether it's on the state or the federal level, have said, this is probably something that we need to look at. I know you and I have talked to some legislators here on the state level about something that we have here on the policy side of the selling farmer tax credit. And that was done, I think, in 2019 when Senator David Givens brought that in and worked and found a pool of money that we could put in for beginning and young farmers, which at the time, that's what we were. Again, we've been thinking about this back that far. But does that need to be changed? And from my perspective, I think we'll see where our policy takes us. But from my perspective, I think that we need to tweak that, because we do need something for beginning and young farmers, but we also need something for active farmers, because beginning and young farmers can't buy all of this. They'll meet the criteria of an active farmer, so they're still going to be allowed to be in this program. But we'll see where our policy takes us as you and Shane go through our policy development process. I believe it'll be next week probably that y'all come out and work on that. But I think that we'll see where that takes us, but hopefully we'll have some work we can do on the state level. And there's probably more tweaks to that program that need to be made that we'll look at and see what we can do.
Yeah, Aleta, I know you've done a lot of research on that issue with other states. Maybe there's 8 states or so.
There's at least 10 states that
10.
have a tax credit that's some way similar to that.
Yeah.
And they all vary a little bit. But I have done some research about, which states are seeing the most success at seeing that tax credit work to getting land transferred into other active farmers' hands, so that we can look at, are there things that we can do in Kentucky that might enhance the use of that credit? What we found out, and we've talked about this, not enough folks know about the fact that credit's available, or they don't know who's eligible, who's not, the value of that credit. So there's a lot of different aspects that we may be able to do to make it work better. And as in the policy side, you're always looking at tweaking to see how do we get closer to the target of what we're trying to do. And if the target is to really give farmers who are trying to access more land a leg up in that transaction, then how can we tweak it to maybe get closer to that point?
Yeah, and I'm personally, to get to work with the General Assembly, I'm very thankful that they are passionate about this issue. And like you said, it goes back to 2019, some minor updates in 2020. And I think their goal is the same as ours. And I want to say thank you to the General Assembly for the action they've taken. Look forward to what we come with next session. But I do think our goal is to do everything we can to help young and beginning farmers. But we do have to also maximize the tools they've given us. And they have given us the tools and a pot of money in the form of a tax credit to help preserve this farmland and keep it in active production. And we're not fully utilizing the tools they've given us because we do kind of have a box on just those young and beginning farmers, and maybe they can't access all of it. So opening that up potentially to active farmers, and I think will better achieve our goal of ensuring that as much farmland as possible will stay in production agriculture and in farmers' hands. And I think that's the goal of ours, and I do think that's the goal of the General Assembly as well. So I'm looking forward to where our policy process takes us and getting to work next session.
Well, and I think it's really important what you said about having more resolutions to consider. That's great because it means people are thinking about these issues. And I think what's really important too is it's farmers at the root
Right.
of this challenge, because they're the ones looking for land. They're the ones that is the asset base. It's also farmers looking for the solution.
Right.
And they're the ones providing input. And, I've said many times, it's important to have the farmer's voice in these land conversations.
It has to be.
It really has to be, or else we're really missing the boat on who needs to be at the table.
Yeah, and I think that's the strength of our organization is the grassroots, and I think this issue in particular is going to be as important as any in contacting their legislators directly and letting them know this is a real problem. The fact we are losing 100,000 acres a year, how much a day?
Almost 11.
Or an hour.
I mean, an hour.
11
it's
an hour.
274 a day.
Yeah,
I believe is what it
274 a
was.
day. So more than the average size of a farm we're losing every day. In Kentucky alone, I think it's very important that our grassroots members, and I know they are, but it's important they continue to let their legislators know this is an issue and we need a solution for it. And I think that's what we're all working towards.
It's just
right
not
now.
a state issue either, though,
Right.
because Aleta and I went to Tennessee and talked to all their state presidents. Had a group. They had a huge room full of people that we went and talked to. They've been working something on the state level. I know North Carolina's doing it. I've talked to Missouri about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to Iowa about it. That being a part of American Farm Bureau, you hear it everywhere you go. So one thing and there will probably be something that we can look at on the national level at some point in time too. You know, is there something we can do? Farmers always say that they're land rich and cash poor. That's what every farmer says that in their life at some point. They've got all this land. You said 80%. So what can we do that if they want to transition out of that, what can we do to incentivize them to keep it in an active farmer's hands? How can we do that? Most people, when they want to sell a farm, if you talk to somebody that's ready to retire about selling their farm, well, I'd sell my farm, but I don't want to what, Aleta? Pay those capital gains taxes. It's what everybody says. So is there some way that we can tweak a program and find a program that we can actually help people that if they want to transition that out, if they'll sell it to an active farmer, is there something on a federal level that we can do to try to help them make that easier for them to do that?
Yeah.
Again, it's not going to be the one silver bullet that's going to fix everything, but I think we have to come at it from a lot of different angles and do a lot of different things to help us with that.
I think that's important on the federal level. When you look at the tax credit on the state level, it's against the income tax at the state level, which it's lower, significantly lower than federal, and it's decreasing, and that's a good thing. But when you look at the potential advantage you would get if you had a similar program, some type of program like that at the federal level against your capital gains or income, you're talking about a much larger advantage that would really make it attractive for selling farmers or selling landowners to look at selling to someone who's going to keep it in active production. And when you think about the fact that at least 10 states have a program at the state level, 20% that we know of have something at the state level, I think it shows that there is real potential to do something at the federal level. And it starts with that grassroots engagement telling members of Congress.
If we can bring American Farm Bureau along and all the states come together to do something, I think there's something that we could probably do to really significantly make a difference here and see if there's something that we can do to help people do this. So I get excited about talking about it. I know that most places you go, people are willing to talk to you about it. We've all been there. We've all spoke about it. And you go somewhere, people want to talk to you about it. I know you get it all the time. If you go somewhere to speak, but people want to hang around afterwards and talk to you about it.
And I love that.
That's right.
I love that. Everyone has a story.
Right.
Based on what they've seen happen with their family, their neighbor's family. I was at a meeting just last week, and I said, how many of you all know of a family situation where the family members don't talk anymore because of something that happened with the farm and the way it passed?
And it's a shame.
And everybody raises their hand. Because we all have those stories. We all know. And it just tears you up.
It's a sad thing.
And so everybody has a story. And there's what's good about it, though, and about these conversations is, one, it's good that people are having these conversations. Because frankly, if we have these conversations earlier on, we do a better job of planning what's going to happen with that farm and what's going to happen with that farm business. And we're going to see success from that. So that's one big thing. But also, people can learn from each other's stories. And, that's what I'm also pleased about this initiative is we're trying to bring to light both some positive and negatives about what people have experienced so that people can learn from those.
Right.
And I've even talked to attorneys who they are excited about the initiative because they're working with farmers. They're looking for more resources for those farmers. They're looking to connect up with other attorneys that have experience on different trusts associated with farmland. And so I think that's the conversations that are happening. I think they're going to bear fruit not just now, but long into the future. Yeah. Because the more people talk about it, the more people realize this is just something we're going to talk about so that we can keep this land in production, then the more it spreads.
That's right.
And I always tell people, at all the meetings, if there's one thing you can do is talk to somebody else about this stuff.
Right.
Let them know there's resources available.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part of this Kentucky Farmland Transition Initiative is there's not the magic bullet with policy, but there's also not the magic bullet with what works for my family.
That's right.
Might not work with yours or with yours, Eddie. And the initiative isn't trying to say, here's what you need to do. It's really laying out the resources and having just information out there that people just haven't thought about and really helping them to get started in those conversations with their family. And then, like you said, it's their land. They get to do with it what they want, but it's giving them resources to start those conversations because sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And I think that's a big part of this initiative is just putting those resources, frequently asked questions, real life examples, good and bad, I think is such an important piece.
The hard part about this subject is you're talking about dying and taxes, and that's a lot of things, Aleta, we've talked about this often. People don't want to talk about that. That's hard to talk about.
It's not a good dinner conversation.
It is not. And when you inject family into it, especially some that want to stay on the farm, some that don't, and what's fair, and you try to figure that out. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here is to help people do that, trying to incentivize ways. So I'm really excited about our annual meeting this year. Renee and Aleta, they're going to have a panel a Thursday morning, I believe at 9 o'clock, maybe a little before 9. I may have my times messed up, but going to talk about it at our annual meeting. It's going to be in the big ballroom where everybody can come in together. And then after the session, we've got a room that Aleta and some of the folks that are on the panel are going to go to, that if somebody wants to have a one-on-one conversation, they're going to be there to do that, because I think people will want to talk to them. And I hope that it makes an opportunity to help people see what we're doing and talk about what they want to do with their farms and see where this takes us and get direction for us for the next year. That's what I hope we do.
Well, to me, I'm excited about that because, again, it's operating at the very practical level, which is what do I need to do with my farm? Here's my situation. Who do I need to talk to? Where's there an attorney that can do X, Y, and Z for me, right? It's at that very practical level. To this higher level of, okay, what does that mean from a policy perspective? How can we put in place good policy that then helps people either with these conversations or with their selling decisions or with the taxation or something, so that, again, the end goal being we got more farmland staying in the hands of active farmers. There isn't a silver bullet. There's no easy answer because there's a million different reasons why farmland comes out of production. But what I'm hopeful with this initiative is that we can attack the reasons that we find that are ways we can take action that do have solutions.
Right.
And I think that's what we're trying to do is really try to get at the pieces that we can tackle and really tackle them and put our shoulder into it and see what we can do.
Yeah.
And one thing about Aleta, she's always there. Go to our website, kyfarmlandtransition.com, and you can leave a message there. She will get back with you. There's a phone number on there if you'd rather call and talk. You can do those things. She's available for it. We're all here to help out with it, but we want to hear from people. I think that's what we want to do. It's an exciting time for us to work on this initiative, but a fun thing that we've all done this year, I know all three of us, we've all talked about the country songs that have come out about farmland transition. Kyle, I believe you had the first one that you brought to us. Some guy I've never heard of. Or what was the name of the song? Do you remember?
The name of the song is "Smooth." I think Matt Stell, is that right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Then Justin Moore, Cody Johnson.
I mean, we've got it's kind of a joke between us, but it's a fun thing to hear that we started the initiative and now we're hearing these songs that
you
are
can't
out there.
turn on the radio and not hear about our initiative.
Anyway, we laugh about the songs that are out there.
And it is fun, but I do think that shows, like the popularity of those songs show that people gravitate towards that. I think the general public out there, they agree with those songs. I think the general public is on our side too, whether it's from a beautification standpoint, they just like the aesthetic look of farmland, or they realize, like you said earlier, Eddie, that we're going to have to feed, fuel, and clothe more people than ever every single year. And we can't do that if we keep losing 100,000 acres of farmland a year in every single state. So I think the general public agrees. I hope they do. I hope they see this. And I hope they reach out to their congressmen and legislators too and talk about the importance of maintaining farmland across Kentucky.
There you go.
Well, land is not just land.
Right.
And I think that's what those songs speak to, and that's what people who aren't farmers, they respond to too. There is a something that they're getting out of the fact that land is in farmland and that farmers are nearby.
Right.
There is something about it. People, and it matters to our rural communities. It matters to our state, and I think that's what this initiative hopes to highlight and build awareness for, but I think that's what those songs really speak to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aleta, we appreciate all the work you do.
Absolutely.
I know you work every day on this issue. I know Renee also, she's got a podcast. I think maybe you two have talked about her. I know she's talked about the initiative. She's certainly working a lot on the issue, and she's speaking about it at different events as well. She's done a great job, but I think it's an all-hands-on-deck approach.
It is. Erica's working on a national level.
Every day on it on a
APDs are talking
national
to the
level.
counties. I mean, we've got everybody. It's everybody's on board and seeing what we can. And our board, I mean, from the board conversation, I mean, the board sees it's important too. So I think it's everybody's taking this up. I often say I didn't realize probably when we first started talking about it that it would probably do what it's done. I really don't. At this point, I thought it would be an initiative that we would do, but it's gained a lot of traction. And Aleta, you've done a lot of great work, and so has our team. So it excites me to see where we are.
Thank you, Shane and Larry, as well. It's a fun issue to work on in the terms of you can just see how much it impacts our membership. When they talk about it, when they know we're trying to help them and their families, that's what excites me to go work on a policy level. So
Absolutely.
Thank you and our leadership team, Aleta, thank you. Any kind of closing thoughts? This is your time to make fun of Eddie and I for dressing like this.
We got the Farm Bureau gig on, don't we?
I was going to say, I need to get the memo next time, though, so that we can have a triplet kind of thing going.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's great to work on this initiative. I think it has a lot of potential to really make a positive impact on the people we care about and this land that is in Kentucky. I really do believe that.
I do too. Well, Aleta, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thanks for all you do.